So imagine humanity's entire future in space. All the exploration, all the discovery, just canceled. Forever. Now, what if I told you it was all because of one simple, almost laughably dumb misunderstanding? Well, today we're diving into a classic Isaac Asimov story that's all about humanity's single greatest and most painfully mundane mistake.
Right out of the gate, the story just hits you with this. There's no build-up, no suspense. The first sentence basically says, game over. We lost the stars. It immediately pulls you in with this huge mystery, right? You just have to know, what in the world was this simple, ridiculous error that cost us literally everything?
So, the guy telling the story, a deputy sheriff, lays it all out. Aliens have already come and gone. And when they left, they basically put a giant "Do Not Disturb" sign on our entire planet. So, how did one incredibly awkward first date with aliens get humanity grounded for good? Let's get into it.
Now, you'd think the setting for first contact would be, I don't know, the United Nations, maybe a secret base in the desert. Nope, it all goes down in a tiny, dusty sheriff's office in Twin Gulch, Idaho. And our main guy, Sheriff Bart Cameron, is totally snowed under by his ridiculously complex income tax forms. You know how they say timing is everything? Well, the aliens' timing couldn't possibly have been worse. They show up on April 14th. That's the night right before tax day in the U.S. And for Sheriff Cameron, who's the kind of guy who has to do his own complicated taxes, this is the absolute peak of his yearly frustration. To put it lightly, he is not in the mood for guests.
What's so clever here is the contrast between the only two humans in the room. You've got Sheriff Cameron, who's just bitter, stressed, staring down at his paperwork, and then you have our narrator, the deputy, who's leaning back, relaxed, watching the stars, and actually paying attention. And that one little difference, that's the pivot point for this entire story.
Okay, so let's talk about the arrival. A flying saucer lands. But there's no big explosion, no blinding lights. The narrator says it was quieter than a dead leaf falling to the ground. Just this silent, kind of gentle first contact.
And the beings that step out of this saucer, they're not bug-eyed monsters. They're just two guys. They look completely, almost boringly normal. They're wearing business suits and hats, looking like a couple of city fellows. They explain later they did it on purpose, to look non-threatening by dressing like our dominant social class. The funny thing is, in a tiny town like Twin Gulch, Idaho, they couldn't possibly look more out of place.
And now we get to the conversation itself. This is where it all goes off the rails. You know those talks where someone's speaking but the other person isn't really hearing a word they're saying? Well, this is that, but on a cosmic, galaxy-altering scale.
So the aliens, they start out with this really formal kind of grand statement. They're trying to set the stage, right? To let us know this isn't just a random visit. It's a big, historic moment. They're talking about all of humanity. But Cameron, his brain is totally fried from tax forms. He doesn't hear the big, universal, your people. He hears the small, personal your people, and immediately thinks they're talking about his wife. Right away, you can see he's just not on the same wavelength at all. His mind is in Idaho, not in the cosmos.
Then, the visitors make their big request. They want to talk to Earth's leaders. They're here to invite humanity to join a huge galactic organization. I mean, this is it. This is the moment science fiction has been dreaming about for 100 years.
And that is the last straw for the sheriff. For him, this isn't some amazing opportunity. It's just a crazy bureaucratic demand from a couple of weirdos in suits who are interrupting the most stressful night of his year. Getting the president to Twin Gulch, the idea is so ridiculous to him that he's convinced they're just a couple of wise guy jerks pulling a prank.
So fueled by pure tax form rage, Cameron just snaps. He completely loses it. And he doesn't just ask them to leave, he tells them to get out and never come back. A sentence that will echo through human history forever.
Now here's the kicker. The aliens can sense emotions, and they pick up this incredibly intense vibe from the sheriff that he just wants to be left alone. So thinking he's the official authority here, they respect his wishes. They basically say, okay, you want privacy? You got it. And they decide to quarantine Earth forever, so no one will bother us again.
So that brings us to the heart of this whole cosmic mess. The entire tragedy comes down to a single word, misheard by a stressed-out guy who just wasn't paying attention.
So the saucer takes off, vanishes into the night sky, and our narrator, the horrified deputy, finally finds his voice. He grabs the sheriff, practically shakes him, and tries to make him understand what he just did. Why? Why would you send them away?
The sheriff's excuse is just amazing. He says he thought they were just some weird foreigners, maybe Italians, because of how they were dressed. But the deputy points out the one obvious, crucial fact that Cameron completely missed because his brain was full of numbers. They told him exactly where they were from.
See, earlier in the conversation, the aliens clearly said, "We come from the watery place your people call Venus." Now the deputy, who was actually listening, heard this and got it. He knew they meant the planet Venus, which scientists have long thought might be covered in water or thick watery clouds.
And there it is, the punchline and the tragedy, all rolled into one. The sheriff, annoyed and distracted, heard the word Venus. But his brain, trying to file these weirdos into a familiar box, heard Venice, as in Venice, Italy. You know, the famous watery place on Earth. It all made perfect, terrible sense to him.
And so, the story leaves us with this incredible, unsettling thought. Humanity got locked out of the entire galaxy, not because of some war or cosmic threat, but because one guy had a headache over his tax forms. It's a funny, but also kind of scary reminder of how our biggest, most amazing opportunities can be completely derailed by our smallest, most everyday frustrations. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many flying saucers have we all missed because we were too busy staring down at our paperwork?